All right, guys, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. If you're someone who is seeking uncommon results, this podcast is for you. Success, happiness, and wisdom. What do these words mean to you? I think we can all agree that we'll probably all have slightly different definitions of each. In these podcasts, I get to dive deeply into conversations with some amazing innovators, influencers, and trendsetters that have had different versions of how they define the terms, yet have come out on the other side with amazing, uncommon results. At some point in their lives, they have decided to unshackle themselves from the norm and go beyond all boundaries. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again for joining us for another episode of Beyond All Boundaries. I'm John Dwyer, the host, and I got a great guest today, Paul Lizell. Paul, I'm really stoked that you're here today, and I just think that thanks for taking the time to be here. Paul and I have gotten to know each other probably, this has been almost a year now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Coming up on a year. Man, time flies, doesn't it? Huh?
It does. It sure does.
And Paul is just one of those guys. He's just a salt of the earth dude, and just has done a lot of awesome things in the real estate space and just in a lot of different areas. And so, Paul, I just want to thank you for coming on, and thanks for being here, man.
John, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's always great talking with you.
We've had some great conversations, and what I really want to talk about initially too is just right off the bat. I think your mindset and your shift of how you run your business and the things that you are really important to you. I mean, I know that your business doesn't run you. And what I mean by that is it doesn't take over your life, your family life, and some of the cool things that you're doing with your business is that, you always look from what I've, the conversations that we've had is that you are just all about your life is worked around your business, meaning that what you want to do in your personal life and your personal vision dictates what your business does. And I mean, you're super successful and you've had a lot of awesome things going on, but why don't you share with the listeners? I think it's really important because, as entrepreneurs, there's so many times where our business really controls us.
Totally.
And I think, this has been a real journey for me the last couple of years too, is where, what is my personal vision? And my personal vision is going to start to dictate my business vision, because
Correct.
we can become slaves to our business. Right. And I think, Paul, I think that you have really cracked the code on that. Just, with the conversations that we've had and just with other peers. And you're, people talk about that and how you've been able to really just focus on that and continue to have a thriving, successful business. So, I shared a lot there, but I'll pass the baton over to you and just talk a little bit about maybe with some of the things that you've gone through your journey to, what's allowed you to do that.
Yeah, and that's really important, like with the journey to it, right? So I started in corporate America like a lot of people did. Out of college, I graduated Drexel in 98. I worked for Vanguard for a very short time, which is a mutual fund company. And then I worked for a community bank as an underwriter, commercial loan underwriter for about a year. And then for additional 4 years as a business development officer, where basically I was going out getting businesses to sign up for checking accounts, loans, so on and so forth, equity management and all that kind of thing as well. And during that time, I knew this was not my long-term play. I was doing it and I enjoyed it and I was good at it and we did well with it. But my long-term play was always going to be real estate. So I actually started buying properties the end of 2001 to do fix and flips. And I partnered with a guy on the first one and we did well with it. And I started doing more and more. My goal was to get out of that banking job and have 18 months worth of bill paying power plus living expenses, all those things wrapped up in one, and just go into real estate full time. And I figure if I have 18 months, reason was 18 months is it generally takes 6 to 9 months for a fix and flip for you beginning to end to generate that income. So if I had 18 months, I had more than enough to do, which worked out well. And I always had that surplus there. And it allowed me to work my business around my life. Because at that time, my first son was born in 2003, second in 2004, third in 2006, and I had a daughter in 2013. Wow. So what it's allowed me to do really, in essence, is live my life, my regular old life, and then do my work schedule around that. Not always, but a lot of the time, right? I want to make sure I was always coaching the kids. So I always coach them in travel baseball. All three of the boys were coaching travel baseball. Coach them in basketball, coach them in football. So I was always involved in that. And that was always important. And, in the spring, when you have three boys playing baseball, there's a lot of lost time.
Right.
A lot of lost time, and you deal with it with hockey, and hockey ends up going almost all year round at times. So it can be crazy with that. They don't take any time off, but so I always worked my schedule around that so I could, leave work at 1 or 2, go fix the field, have the field prepped so we can play a game in the afternoon, right at 5 o'clock game. So that was important to me. And if I was working a 9 to 5 job, I would never have been able to do that. So that was key. And real estate definitely gave me the freedom to be able to do that. And I'm super happy about that. And it still continues, right? And I still do it, even though I'm not coaching as much as I used to.
So, what's interesting though is that your background, you worked for Vanguard, right? And I know that real estate is one of your primary things, but you are very well scoped, and you and I, had an opportunity to discuss some planning strategies and ideas too. But it's interesting that when you were working with Vanguard, right, in the mutual fund world, and it was like a lot of people when they get into that space, they think that the stock market and everything is all that there is, that all that you should be doing, right? But you're in the inner circle, right, with Vanguard, and yet you see that there's probably potentially better opportunities or better things for you to do financially. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely.
I find that really interesting.
We get stuck in this mindset, and you and I have talked about this, how they educate us in school to an extent about, you buy your stocks, you buy your bonds, whatever, mutual funds, you put them in there and it grows for a specific period of time. And you put it in your IRA, your 401k, all these things, all these traditional methods. But for me, I always kind of learned about these outside the box, and started with gold and silver. I always liked gold and silver when I was younger. Baseball cards, comic books, even at one point too, right? Before I graduated and other stuff. And they're in working, and my background is in my degree was in finance, and I'm minored in economics. So I know a lot about finance and how that's run and how they're paid and how much that takes away from your return on investment. You and I've had conversation about real return on investment, right?
Yeah, we have, right?
It's not what they show. It's not what they show there actually. So other assets were always important to me, real estate being one, that being the first one, gold and silver as well. And then when cryptocurrencies came around, I really got big into cryptocurrencies, and I'm really heavy into those. And that's a whole other different animal in and of itself. But it's just getting out of that mindset that you buy and you invest, like all my friends do, and they invest in the stock market. They're buying Tesla, they're buying Amazon, they're buying whatever. And there's other good alternatives out there. There's other things that are better for tax havens. And there's people that just don't understand our tax structure. Like a real good friend of mine is a doctor, and his wife is in pharmaceutical industry, and they make great money and they pay tremendous taxes because they don't understand that if they have rental properties, you can depreciate, and you can write off that interest and really help reduce your tax burden. And it's just simply because they weren't educated in that. And I try to work them and I try to convince them of that, but people got to be willing to do it as well. And a lot of it's just time and what they're worried about. So
yeah, and I think too, like even with some of the things that you and I have talked about in the past in relation to the foundational pieces, utilizing other alternative strategies too. I mean, you're doing a lot of things that you and I have talked about, of sheltering your money from the tax code.
the
right?
life insurance, yes.
Utilizing life insurance in a big way. And
Yes.
it's a huge opportunity for people too. And again, this podcast isn't necessarily designed to tell people what to do with their money, right? So we want to put that disclaimer out there, right? That we're not trying to give investment advice, or this is what Paul has learned, and his background as in finance. And again, it's the traditional institutions, right, are the ones in control of all the decisions and tell us what to do with our money. And so those decisions benefit them, not us as consumers, right?
Absolutely.
So let's go back though for a second too, Paul. So it was interesting how you made a comment, like, you got into, you had a background in finance, you were working with Vanguard, and then you got into some lending, but you knew that you always wanted to get out of corporate America. What was it? Was it from an early on stage where your parents entrepreneurs, or what was it that just said, I want to run a business and be in business for myself versus somebody else?
Great question. And this actually just came up in Clubhouse. Last week, I was listening to Clubhouse, and this Clubhouse session went on for about 6 or 8 hours. I was on and off of it. And is like, where do you learn to be an entrepreneur? Is it born in you, or is it something you learn? And that's a great question. I personally think it's born in you, because I'll tell you, from a young age, kindergarten and first grade, second grade, we had a candy store near us. I used to buy Swedish fish for half a penny each. So I'd get 2 of them for a penny. I would take them into school and my friends all wanted them. So I'd sell them for a couple pennies each, right? Now I'm getting my own Swedish fish, my own candy cigarettes, and I'm selling them. I'm making these nice profits. That's allowing me to just buy as much as I want of the candy, unlimited supply for me to eat as well. So that kind of like, it was inborn in me. My dad didn't teach me. He loved that I did that. Don't get me wrong. But my dad is an entrepreneur. My grandfather, his dad was an entrepreneur. He had a
Okay.
grocery store growing up. His dad's dad, same thing. My great great grandfather, my dad owned office furniture and office supply store. And on my mom's side, she had a bridal salon for years, was an
Okay.
entrepreneur. My uncles, all three of them are contractors on their own, all entrepreneurs. My cousins, I mean, it is all throughout my family. We're all entrepreneurs. We don't like being told what to do, when to do it, and where to be and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. And I do think it's like, one, it's a mindset, but two, it's kind of within you. And a lot of entrepreneurs, not all of them, right? But a lot of them are riddled with ADD. They have all these ideas, and sometimes you don't know which direction to go into. It's like kind of focusing and getting this one works, that works, rather than throwing everything against the wall to see what works. But it is something I do think that's born within you. I hope I answered your question, by the
Well,
way.
you did though. I mean, when you think about like your family, I mean, it's kind of embedded in you, right? Like where
Yes.
you have this desire and not being told what to do or live so much for corporate America. But
Yep.
and what's really cool though, Paul, is that just again, I want to bring this back because I think it's you have done it in a way to where a lot of entrepreneurs get sucked in because their business becomes their life, and to where, having 4 kids, right, traveling, baseball, all these things. I mean, you really made it a point to, your business doesn't run you at all, and you're very successful and you've done a great job. So was that something like early on, like
Yes.
for you, where you said, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, but at the same time, I'm not going to let, because it's difficult for me, right? I mean,
Oh,
if
for
I'm, if
all of
I'm
us.
being totally honest, like, I mean, there's challenges. I mean, my wife and I get into it all the time. I mean, I would work 90 hours a week, but the point is why?
Yes.
What do I want to look back on and think about when I'm gone, what kind of legacy am I leaving, or what kind of impression am I leaving upon my kids and my family? So, you have done such a really good job of that. Do you want to share just maybe some of the thought processes that you had, or just was it just something that was just really important to you from the beginning, or just did you go through some life lesson to say, okay, well, this has got to change?
You know what? It could be a two-part here. So when I was young and I played baseball, basketball, football, my mom didn't like sports. My dad didn't like sports. My stepdad did. So he would occasionally come watch my games. Every once in a blue moon, my mom or my dad would come, but they were working a lot too, so they couldn't always be there. A lot of times I was waiting after practice for, half an hour, 45 minutes to get picked up. So I'd be like the last one picked up. I didn't want my kids to have to deal with that. So I got to say that was probably part of it, but I love coaching. I love playing the game, and coaching is so different than actually playing the game, believe it or not, because now you're dealing with multiple personalities. It's not just yourself.
Right.
When you're playing, you can control yourself. You can control what you do. You can't control, as a coach, you can't control what all these kids are doing, right? All the different personalities, right? So
Right.
now you got to get them all structured. So I wanted to be involved with my kids to really help them, and to be like, I felt like I had more experience than a lot of the other dads. I wanted to be involved in coaching. So I needed my work to work around that. And that was really important to me. I always wanted that from jump. And I don't care if I could have made $3 million a year working 80, 90, 100 hours a week. I'm totally happy making 500,000 to 750,000, say, and work 20 hours a week. I'd be great with that. So I
Right.
decide I get to mix and match. In the off season, I work more hours. In the kids sports season, I just don't work as much. I cut it back a little bit more. I control my deal flow, so I don't have to work as much too. And I even do that leading up to a vacation. If I know we're having a vacation in March or going to an event, I'll actually slow my deal flow so I can control that a little bit easier, or just push it off on other people more, my disposition guy, or my VAs that I use. So for me, it was definitely a point. Like, I wanted to be able to control my schedule as much as possible. You can't always do it 100%. Every once in a while, you got to be at a settlement where
Right.
there's specific time when you got to get stuff done. But for the most part, I can control it and I can work it around my life. So my wife and I can go on a vacation together if we want to, just the two of us, or take the kids and just be able to hop up and go at any point. I like kind of living off the cuff sometimes too. Just last second, all right, Great deal here. Let's go. And we'll figure it out. We'll make it work.
Right.
I think that's important, but it is easy, as you said, to get sucked into. Because I mean, 3 days this past week, I was up till 1:32 in the morning doing stuff, getting stuff done. The ideas are going. When you're in the flow, you want to keep going, right? When you're not in the flow, you don't mind cutting it out. But when you're really into it and you're knocking stuff out, you kind of want to continue in that flow for sure. So it's important to keep, to work your life around to work your business around your lifestyle working, right?
So, and so talk about REO Auction Academy, because, you mentioned one thing in talking about how you realize when coaching, right, and being a coach was different than you playing, and that really, you had a really passion to do that, right? And REO Auction Academy, is that similar to coaching? Because you're helping people. I mean, it's kind of like, so do you want to talk a little bit about that as well? Because I think that's important to understand too, because I mean, you have that coaching mindset, right? And you just want to share your wisdom and your knowledge with as many people as you possibly can. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And that got me into the coaching business, into the real estate side as well, because how much I enjoyed coaching. And, it's every different personality, the way these kids are. It's same thing with as grownups, right? Everybody's gonna have a different personality, different strengths, different weaknesses. So as a coach, your job when coaching a sport, if you want to have a good team, you've got to recognize your players' strengths, their weaknesses, and how to help them most accentuate their strengths and cover up on their weaknesses. That's your job as a coach. If you do that and you do that well with the entire team and they all buy in, you'll be a successful team. Same thing in real estate investing with these people. All right, some people are very analytical, and that's great because that's going to really help them analyze deals, but they're not great on the sales end. So they need help there. So we can help them on that end to get better at the sales process, or to help them hire somebody that works with them well, so they can, help basically cover their weakness there, and basically help their strengths and find out what they like, what aspect of the business they like. Me, I love finding a deal. Selling a deal, I don't really care about. Like, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to deal with buyers, but I do love finding the deal. So it's coaching. Coaching sports really got me into coaching in real estate, and I love it. It's fun. We have at least a monthly coaching call, if not two of them. And they usually almost always go an hour plus. And sometimes people are like afraid to ask questions, but you always want to pry from them, try to get as much information as you can, because nobody wants to ask what they think is not a great question, or they don't understand this. But it's important for them to all do that. And like, we have some good students, very analytical guys, who ask question after question after question, which is great. And they're like, I'm sorry, I'm hogging all the questions. I'm like, don't keep going, because your question, somebody else is thinking right now. So we create a fact sheet out of that, a Q&A. So with a bunch of different questions, we do it off of their stuff.
So you have other business partners in REO Auction Academy? Or
yeah, my disposition guy, he's 50-50 partner with me on that.
Okay. And when did you guys start that?
So we started that in 2017, late 2017.
Okay. And how many students are you guys coaching, or how many people join your podcast and your shows? And
so in the students right now, we probably have a total of around 20 active students right now, about 20 of them. Yeah. And then we have people that have been through the program for a couple of years that still come on our coaching calls. Actually, a lot of them are still on our coaching calls. The guys who are really active are on the coaching calls. We record them and put them on Facebook. So if they can't be there, which we have a lot of people who work full time too, they can't be there. So we just put them on Facebook, and they can watch them there on the close.
What do you find to be one of the biggest things from a coaching perspective with entrepreneurs? You just made the comment, some people have a full-time job and trying to get where we're at, right? And get out of that job, so to speak, and get in the entrepreneurial world. What do you find to be the most common asked questions around the business aspect? Not so much the real estate part of it, but more of running your own business. What do you tend to see people need the most help with?
How to structure it, right? How to structure the business. Like, do I use a VA for this? Do I use a VA being a virtual assistant for what part of your business? Do I hire somebody when I have enough deal flow? The questions are always usually leading questions where they're getting a little bit too far ahead, but they're good questions to ask, because ultimately it's going to take them in that direction. They want to be able to build it and get it there. And I want them to hear them ask that question, because that means their intention is to build and get to that point. So we show them how to do it. We actually have videos on how we train our VAs to do stuff that we share with them. We have Excel spreadsheets on how we use and how we manage the property deal flow. And if they want a rental spreadsheet, we can give them those as well. So we try to make it pretty simple for them. But the questions they generally ask are, um, how do I use my VA? What do I do? And initially we tell them you should do everything initially because you need to learn how to do each aspect of it so you can teach somebody how to do it. Plus you'll learn what you like to do and you'll learn what you hate to do because you're never going to love everything you're doing within the deal, right? The transaction, you want to have a transaction coordinator who's helping on the buy side title and then the sell side title, that kind of thing. So it's important to figure out what you like and what you don't like and hire out for what you don't like to do.
It's interesting. I was able to interview Robert Nickel the other day, and to me, the virtual assistant world was something new.
Yeah.
I had heard about it, but it's pretty robust. I mean, you can really get really good help and not have to worry about complete expanding your overhead. I mean, there's overhead in it, but
Yes.
it's an efficient,
Controllable though. More
it's
controllable.
controllable, right? And finding a really good VA is really helpful, and it can really manage your business quite well, actually.
Really could change it, and it's amazing. My VA's a $5 an hour VA, and she does a good job. And I can give her all kinds of different tasks to do. If anything, I don't give her enough stuff to do, but she does it all and does it pretty well and does it promptly, and just takes a lot of the onus off me. For example, I got a property in Scranton, Kansas that I've had for a while. I've been having a tough time finding a contractor, was going through agents for referral. So I pawned it off to her. Within a day, she found a really good contractor for me. It was in a different market, but was willing to go and travel that hour and 15 minutes to go do this rehab. So things like that, I hate doing that task, right?
Right.
She loves it and she enjoys it. So it's, going playing to her strength and my weaknesses. One, I don't want to do it. And two, I suck at it. It would take me way longer. So it's given those kind of tasks, know what tasks to give up and what tasks you actually want to do and complete. Because there's tasks that you do that you really enjoy in your business that you don't necessarily want to give up.
Right.
I actually enjoy bidding on properties on these auctions. I really do enjoy that process. So I've been really leery of giving it up. At some point, I'm probably going to, but at this point, I still enjoy doing it. So I'm doing it. And so, but I have videos on how to do it. So it's simple. If I wanted to train it and hand it off to my VA, I could probably give it to her. She probably would do a better job than I did on it. Who knows?
And I think, what you just said there too, is setting up SOPs, the videos and the standard authorization procedures. It's amazing to me because it happened to me not too long ago, but just to where I have this company and running this company, and I have relied so heavily on my staff, but if there's a staff change, the wheels fall off because there's no SOPs, there's nothing to do. You just assume that the next person can just figure it out, right? Yes. So to what you talked about is to how you're building out SOPs, building videos out, so you can easily transition yourself out and someone can come in and it's just so detailed of what they need to do. To me, that was a major blind spot, and I can't believe it because I had, for 8 years, I had the same staff person. I just never had to worry about anything. Right. And then she wanted to go to Thailand and do some mission work, and we wanted to support that, but I couldn't have her, being 12 hours or whatever hours time difference.
Big time difference.
Right. Yeah. It's huge time difference. And so, it was amazing to me to realize all the different things that she was doing, but then not to tell her to document. And even though it was documented, more from a SOP video and step by step, because what happens is that you and I, right, on our day to day, we just do what's natural. I don't think about every single step it takes for me to go from point A to point B in certain things that I'm doing with clients.
Right.
Same for you. And then it's when you break that down, it's geez, there's a lot of steps between A and Z that if people don't do, they completely mess it up.
Totally.
Right.
It's easy.
So for me, that was a big eye opener. And so that would be my, advice. If you're starting a business, number one, like what you said, get involved and understand the business itself. Right. And at some point, yes, you don't want to be doing $10 an hour work. You got to be doing the things that you want to either do and enjoy or drives revenue, and then develop the culture and all those different types of things.
Yeah.
But it's important to know, from the beginning ground up, all the steps and process, because then you can build out those SOPs.
Yeah. There's actually a friend of mine, Gary, Sharper Image. You ever hear Sharper Image?
Oh, yeah.
Very, very, very good. And for people who are got a business going, and sometimes they don't know what direction it's going or where they're going or what their cause is. Somebody like Gary is great for somebody like them that are getting in touch with, because he'll break it down and show you everything you got to do. Like you said, the standard operational procedures, like the videos, that's stuff I learned from him from being in masterminds with him and his wife. And they're unbelievable with it. They do a fantastic job. And I try to implement basically a lot of the stuff that they teach there. You know, they're big into the core values, which really do matter, because your core values, you need to hire people with the same core values as you, because otherwise it's just not going to work.
Right.
Right. I mean, you just look at it, your the people that work, the people that you hire, take on as clients, right? They have to match your core values, or is it going to be great for you either?
Right.
Both people are going to suffer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Paul, how many on the real estate side, are you still actively involved in the real estate? Or are you more doing coaching? Okay.
Yeah, the real estate. And this is one of the big things that I think is super important. There's so many gurus out there who teach, but they aren't active in the real estate anymore. For me, I always want to be super active in the real estate. One, I know what the market's doing. I got a pulse on, I know what's working, what's not working, so that I could teach my students today's data, not 3 years ago data, right? Or information away, because the market can change in 3 months, 6 months. Real estate is slower than other things, but it still changes. You want to stay a step ahead. Like, we're prepared for Q4 to be a bigger increase in inventory coming up here, and the market to really start to decline in real estate world. So we're trying to prepare our students, get ready for Q4, prep up now for the inventory increase and the price drop. So
what do you think what that's gonna lead to the inventory increase and the price drop? What's from your
the foreclosures, you know, the moratorium being up, there's a lot more foreclosures going on, a lot more evictions going on, and they tried to bump it, and they have bumped it into March in certain markets, but that's going to, you know, eventually go away, and that's going to lead to a much bigger bucket of foreclosures for people to invest in, and people who just need to sell their house now. And it's a declining market. All of a sudden, more and more people are going to sell, and you're going to see the floodgates open, and people will dump more inventory on the market, which will drop the price a bit. Don't know how much. Couldn't tell you. Don't have a crystal ball, but it will start going down, and the inventory will start going up. And that goes hand in hand. Obviously, with increased inventory, you're going to have lower prices.
Right. And it's just like anything, it's cyclical, right? I mean,
Totally.
And it's just one of those things. So are you talking to your students about being prepared for opportunity then, and getting in positions for those opportunities?
Yep. Finding private lenders, getting them set up in place for that. When these deals come in, they're ready to just jump in and ready to rock and roll with it.
Awesome.
It's important to be involved in the business to still do it. And I never want to walk away from that part of the business. And I like it. I'm a macro guy. I like looking at the markets and seeing what's going on, and, you know, what the money supply is, the M1, the M2 money, all these different, you know, things that most people don't want to hear anything about. But it's important to know that, because that's going to lead you 6-12 months into the future. When you start seeing things happen, all right, you can bet in 6 to 12 months, this is likely to happen. There's obviously intervention that could come in, right? They can extend a moratorium to the end of 2021 if they want to, but you can't operate in business on what ifs. You got to operate with today's facts and then base it off that, and then you adjust on the fly.
Right. What would be one of the things that, as you guys are working with your students, how many students are you wanting to take on per year?
You know, probably as many as we can handle. I do have one guy that I know I could add as a coach when we need it, when we feel like we have too many and we can't deal with them all. And he's tremendous here. He knows how we operate. And my business partner was business partners with him from 2009 till 2013. So he knows him really well too. Plus we know a couple other people. So I would love to grow it as big as we can get it, stick with the same model that we're doing here. And we teach people how to buy on online auctions off the MLS, and also off market stuff from wholesalers, or what we're leading into now, like for sale by owners off Zillow, things like that. So we try to do it where there's no marketing cost. You're not dealing with, for the most part, end buyers, bank, they're throwing on auction. You're not really dealing with them. It's kind of a robotic thing in comparison to if you're buying off postcards, where you have to deal with somebody and the life issues that they got going on. A lot of people don't like to deal with that. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time with that. I'd rather spend less on marketing and spend a little more on the property, or updating the property.
So are you buying and holding these properties?
Some of them, most of them we wholesale. So we
Okay.
buy all over the country. We bought in 44 out of the 50 states. Most of them we buy and just immediately resell. We try to do a back-to-back closing. If we can't do a back-to-back closing, generally they sell within 30 to 90 days. Some of them we just, because this market is so hot right now, some of them we're doing wholesales where we just basically make it mortgageable, throw it back on the market and make a nice chunk of change. You do what the market dictates. And right now the market is totally, people are just dying for inventory. They don't mind if the property needs work. So
Right.
they're paying premium right now and you're making a nice little spread just doing a little bit of work as opposed to doing a full rehab, which is a lot more work.
Well, it's interesting too, because I mean, they're in the real estate space, right? There's so many, when people hear real estate, they think that everybody's buying properties and holding properties,
Right.
buying, but
Not on them. Yep.
yeah, I mean, and it, there's some of that, but it sounds like your main business is wholesaling and not
Yeah.
really necessarily holding the properties. Now, you
Right.
probably do have some properties that
I
you
do.
have, right? And you and I
Yeah, we
talked
keep
about.
some rentals. And like I just bought a 12 unit in Casper, Wyoming that we're rehabbing right now. And a lot of that is like I need to manage my taxes and I need rentals to manage my taxes, right? John, we talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about that, Paul. The problem is, man, you're gonna end up getting out of depreciation. Pretty soon you're gonna have a tax.
That's exactly right. Which is why I'm going to need to keep buying more. That'll end up doing because you'll run out of the depreciation. So you have to replace those ones that do that, or just get rid of them.
Yeah.
Now you got a capital gain coming in too. So
yeah, just
you're always trying to work around it.
I'll help you not become the perfect taxpayer eventually.
That's right. With your help, I'll be in good shape.
Right. Awesome. So what would you say would be the secret to what your success has been? What would be one of the things that you really have established to really what's helped you guys become successful? If you can think of one thing.
So for us, we've gotten really, really good at analyzing properties. So if I take 10 properties and I give those same 10 properties to my disposition guy and say, analyze, and let's come up with our as is value and our after repair value. If we took all 10, we would be spot on. Like he and I, we do this all the time. Like, here, come up with the value. And he'll come back 145. I'm like, yeah, I had it at 147.5. Yes, we're in the same that we've gotten really, really good at that, at analyzing deals. Again, doing this for 20 years now, you get pretty good at doing that. And so when our students get deals, we tell them, bring every deal by us. Let us look at it to make sure it's a deal. And then they'll bring some deals. They're like, yeah, this isn't, you're going to have trouble getting rid of this one. Here's why. You're going to have issues with this. The price point, look at this one that sold a mile down the road. It had more square footage you got, and it's less. So avoid this one, get out of it if you can. And we did it. Last week, we just had to bail on a property. I lost a $1,500 deposit because the septic was bad and it needed like a 30 to 40K replacement. I'm like, I wasn't willing to do that. And the bank was unwilling to, in this market, to take a price haircut. So I'm like, all right, just take it. We're moving on. I'm not getting into a bad deal. And you got to be willing to do that and get out of a bad deal and lose a little bit. Basically, it's like an insurance policy kind of in a way. You don't want to take a property down that is going to be an issue and drive you crazy for the next 6 months.
What was going through my head as you were talking there is not to get emotionally tied to your deals.
Can't. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's good that you have your colleague, because sometimes we can get blinded because you want this deal so bad. Right. And I suppose you see that with students, like when you tell them to give us your list and you're saying it's not a good deal, they might have 20 reasons why it's a good deal.
Yep.
Right. And so that's a challenge because we get emotionally charged about, we see like, oh no, this can happen. This can be a great rate of return. This can be whatever it is. Right. And I think
you fall in love with the deal, a property instead of the deal. Right. And you got to make it a deal. Now we have ways around it. And like we've had workarounds. All right, this may not be a great wholesale property, but let's say you put 5 or 10 grand into it, make it nice, and then sell it with owner financing. You could sell it for a higher number and then just hang on to that and keep that. That's paying you. It's kind of like a rental, but it's not a rental. Or you collect 6 months of payments and you sell that note and you make the profit when you do that. So we teach them how to do that as well. So it's a little creativity. So if they got into a deal, it was bad and they found out, all right, now let's figure out another exit strategy for you that's gonna be more profitable for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. What would be the thing that you guys have realized that might be your biggest weakness, or things that you have to adapt or try to improve upon in your business model?
So for us, it's always keeping up with what people do traditionally, meaning the people that do whether it's pay per click advertising to find deals or the PPC, or whether doing direct mail. I belong to a couple of different masterminds where we see everybody's issues with what's going on, what their costs are, and things like that, but we're not active in it. We could teach our students, but we're not perfect. So if they want to learn that, we actually have to incorporate somebody else in who's actively doing it and make them a part of the deal there too. So that's our biggest weakness, probably for us, because we're not actively doing that. And we don't want to actively do that because that is literally a whole other business. There's literally a whole other different business that we'd have to start up. And we just don't want to get involved with that at this point. Maybe down the road, we used to do it. I stopped direct mail in 2013 because I had enough inventory. Now the inventory is a little tighter. It might be something to do, but it's when you're looking at the whole country, we can always find deals. That's a difference, right? Rather than a certain area.
Right. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a weakness. It might be something that you guys aren't really currently doing, but to white label that or have somebody else come in and be taking care of that, who specializes that, I think is also a strength, because you realize and recognize that you can't be everything to everybody.
Right.
Right. And so you have found your niche of what you guys are really, really good at. And then you partner with other people that need to come in. Yeah, you might want to be able to do that right now for that service, but from a bandwidth, from an expertise standpoint, does it really serve and benefit what your overall options are?
Right. And really, it kind of doesn't right now for us to do that and get involved with that. So white label, I agree with you, would be the definite way to go. That's what we planned on if we needed to.
Yeah, cool.
People want to go that way. Most of them don't want to go that way. They like our program because they don't want to deal with home sellers. That's why they like it.
Well, it's a very unique thing. I mean, I'm learning more and more about it. Again, in the real estate space, from somebody who's not in it on a day to day, right? When we hear real estate, we're only thinking about buying the buildings, buying the properties, and there are so many different things that you can do to position yourself in a good way. And there's other planning strategies around it, which you and I have talked a lot about. I mean, again, this isn't just all that you do. I mean, you have a lot of things going on as it relates to your overall wealth picture. I mean, you understand the economics and understanding that you want to be in control of your assets, and you're doing a lot of different things too. So it's, you bring that value to your students too, I think, because I think, a lot of times, real estate, there's a lot of awesome opportunities, but you have to know what you're doing, right? And you have to have coaches like Paul, and again, reach out to Paul. How, let me ask this: how can people reach out to you and get a hold of you? Listen to this podcast. They want to say, hey, you know what? I want to learn more about REO Auction Academy and getting in contact with you. Where can they get a hold of you at?
Quickest, easiest ways for them to go to www.reauctionacademy.com. Another one they can go to, another source we have is housedealsamerica.com. That's our two websites. One just has our deals that we're working on currently. The other one is about REO Auction Academy and different programs they can sign up for. So if they want to reach out there, and they can directly email us, they'll catch either myself or Mike in an email. We'll get back to them quickly, and we can give them a phone call, or we could just do it through email, whatever's easier for them.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to make sure we didn't forget about that because it's important. But back to what I was thinking about is that there's a lot of people trying to get into the space, and it's really important to find coaches like you or somebody that can help them. And Paul, what I love about your background is that you're just not so just real estate is everything. I mean, you have a lot of different things going on, and you and I have talked about that as part of the planning and different things that you're doing, right? I mean, it's a big part of it, but it's important to know it's not everything, right? And you're using other assets to generate real estate. You're creating the velocity and money component to where your money is always in movement and constant velocity.
That's motion for sure. Yeah. And my biggest real estate has been great for me, but this year my biggest returns probably have been on cryptocurrencies, as you probably know, the big jumps in there. So I do love that market too. And it's good to invest in that and be invested in different. It's nice to have a nice portfolio, right, of different things. My wife is involved with her portfolio is in the stock market. So for me, mine's the real estate market and the crypto market. So now we encompass a few different markets, and we're more balanced, plus the life insurance policies, which are, to me, the greatest asset there is. Gives you all kinds of flexibility, which both you and I love those. That's
right.
Greatest invention in this country.
Yeah, and you're using those to create these other assets.
Right.
And so I think your finance background and all your knowledge, I mean, the coaching that you offer is probably second to none, in my opinion, in relation to everything, because you're not just coaching on deals, you're coaching on business, you're coaching on, overall economic strategies, and then making sure you're looking at it as frame a whole. And then also, just knowing who you are, I'm sure it comes up to where you're talking to your students about not letting your business run you.
Totally. 100%. Yep. You do not
And,
want to let it run you. Is the
you know,
truth.
and it's so easy to do, man. It's so,
Very easy to fall into that. My wife, when I start to do that, she pulls me back.
yeah.
Hey, you have a family here. Like, oh, yeah, you're right. Gotta get back. I'm in the off season, so I got no sports going on right now, which is great. So I could do more, but at the same time, I got to remember, all right, go back here. That's why we just came back from Breckenridge a couple weeks ago, ski vacation, which was great. That was a ton of fun, and didn't have to deal with business at all the entire time I was out, which was great. That was perfect.
Well, I think that's another thing too, is being able to have a business or run a business to where you can step away for a couple of weeks, and that's a sign of a true business that's running on all cylinders, right? Because a lot of business owners, we often, I'm speaking as part of that, is that if we step away, right, the business falls apart.
Business falls apart. Yeah, we created a job, basically what we've done.
We created a job and we feel important to that. But for you to have the ability to step away for a couple of weeks, go skiing, and come back and have it all operational, I think that's the scale and the scope that everybody tries to accomplish and get to.
Yes.
And it's just by implementing certain procedures and certain, getting people in the right seats at the right time, and having them operate that from that perspective.
100%.
Anything you want to add on that? Was there any aha moment as it relates to how you were able to do that, or just did it happen over time?
It definitely happened over time, and it kind of got forced by things I hated. And I'm like, I got to hire a VA because I hate doing this. There's certain things I'll give my wife to do. She's very analytical and good with, writing the bills out and doing all that. I hate that. That's a time crunch for me. It sucks up half a day writing out checks and stuff to contractors. And, I'll be the one to go to UPS and overnight stuff, but I don't want to have to do all that other little dumb annoying stuff. I like to come up with different ideas within the business and how we can modify it and change it. It's the day-to-day grind stuff that really holds you back from getting that done. If you're worried about doing all the paperwork and the bookkeeping, which we've hired a bookkeeper who's also the accountant, thank goodness, makes things a little bit easier. By divvying all this stuff up and handing it off allows me to focus more on the business itself and grow that and grow the coaching business. And that's been fairly easy to do because we had a game plan of what we were doing with Jump. Everything was going to be video based. They can text us, they can email us, and they're really, luckily all of our students are really good about time and knowing not to bug us all the time. They, hit us, hey, when you're free, you mind give me a quick call or an email. So they're really, really good. I guess we kind of set that bar, the tone, and they follow it, and they're tremendous.
Awesome. Well, hey man, I really appreciate you being on today. Is there any one wisdom of nugget that Paul want to share with the listeners, or anything that you would like to pass on?
I would definitely want, and I got to say this now, just because we're still in the infancy stages and cryptocurrencies, look into them. You don't have to invest in them because I'm not going to give you financial advice, but there are so many great cryptos out there right now. And there's also a bunch of garbage ones out there. So for people who want to invest a little bit in something different other than real estate or the stock market, just look at the crypto market. It is definitely an alternative for you. It's an interesting thing, and not many people are into it right now, believe it or not. Even though institutional money's pouring in, there's still not a lot of citizens out there active with it.
Yeah, and we're not, by no means, again, from the security standpoint, we're not suggesting anybody goes and buys them or purchase them or based on any recommendation, but what Paul is talking about is
take a look, research them. Yeah,
do research, and we're not promoting or saying not to do it, right?
Exactly.
It's a matter of just, again, looking at other opportunities that are out there. So.
It's a lesser known one that not a lot of people are into, and it's just the technology behind it is really cool with the blockchain. So if nothing else, research the technology and everything that's behind that.
Yeah, the blockchain is going to be here. I mean, that's really that's a whole nother conversation in itself. I think.
And the smart contracts within some of these blockchains, which is pretty good. That's going to it's going to be interesting for life and for business down the road here.
Yep,
they'll change it for sure.
Well, man, I really appreciate you taking the time and being on the call. And again, for the listeners, please give us written reviews. Anything that you'd like us to add to the show, or any comments is really helpful. And again, Paul, I just want to thank you again for being on. One more time, how can the listeners get hold of you?
So they can reach out to us at reoauctionacademy.com. They can also, if they want to, they can email me personally. And it's a simple, basic email I have. It's my first and last name at gmail.com. So it's just Paul Lizell at gmail.com.
And Paul, why don't you spell your last name just so everybody
Sure.
has it?
Yep. Liz is in zebra, ELL.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And again,
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
You bet, money. It's good to see you, and we're gonna see each other in probably 3 weeks, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. I already booked everything.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking
forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So, all right, man. Well, again, thanks for your time, and thanks for being on the show and sharing your wisdom. And again, appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you as well. Take care.
Take care.